Hey guys, welcome back to World of Tanks. My name is Bruce and today I want to present the tier 6 American heavy tank which has recently entered the game, the Pawlack Tank. If you're interested in more reviews and gameplay, go to YouTube and search for World of Tanks with Bruce to get all of my videos, or click on the subscribe button. In addition to this, you can now also support me on Patreon, so feel free to follow this link and become a patron. And now let's go. Before we start with some gameplay, let me quickly show you how I play this tank. Now, I tested a lot of equipment and this is what I finally chose. In my opinion, it makes sense to play the Pawlack tank with the turbocharger because I do think that mobility is one strength of all of the WoT tanks. And so I want to improve the mobility so that the mobility of this tank is actually comparable, let's say, to a slow medium tank instead of heavy tanks. Furthermore, I play the tank with the gun rammer in order to increase the DPM on this tank. Now the DPM, and we'll come to the stats in a second, is very low if you take the high alpha gun. However, if you take the low alpha gun, the DPM is actually quite good. And then I play the tank with coated optics because I think that boosting view range is extremely important until you reach about the maximum view range. Now, as you can see, my crew is already trained on the M2 WoT tank. However, this was the crew that I used for this tank. So my commander does have obviously 6 stents, and then I have the gun handling skills on the gunner and on the driver. I set up intuition on the loader, which is very important, and it is one of the best perks or skills now in World of Tanks. Plus I trained the firefighting skill. Actually, I don't know why, but I think this was a leftover from the T29. And then I'm working on repairs. I do have brothers in arms on all of the crews, and on the gunner I am currently working on situational awareness. And I think with this crew I'm pretty much set up for this tank. Okay, here we are in the first game with the Pawlack tank. We are in a top tier situation, spawning on Himmelsdorf, and as usual, let's first of all take a look at the map. Spawning on Himmelsdorf in the north with the Pawlack tank, I think you do not have too many options. You could play defensively right here and see how the game develops. In my opinion, you should not go to the hill because sniping with this bad dispersion is not an option. Plus, in this position you do not have the gun depression. You should, depending on being low or top tier, play in this area and just use your brawling capabilities in order to make pressure on this part of the map. Alright, so this is exactly what we are going to do. We are going to try to brawl in the heavy lane and try to win the fight against the KV-85 in order to win the game. Now, in my opinion, it doesn't make any sense to go to the hill because we would be out of game for quite some time. And in a top tier situation, we have to go where the fight takes place as soon as possible in order to win the game. Now, let's take a look at the weaponry of this tank. Now, those values are slightly outdated. The DPM is only 1600, which is very, very low. However, alpha damage of 240 is quite nice for a tier 6 heavy tank. The aim time is bad, 2.3 seconds, and I think it was even further reduced to 2.4. We'll take a look at this later on. Dispersion is also 0.42 actually, so even worse than depicted here. So all in all, the gun handling is very, very, let's say, lackluster. As you can see, in such a situation, if we fully aim in the shots, then we actually hit our opponent. However, you will not be able to constantly hit targets if you are, let's say, shooting at medium range or even at higher range. At high ranges, your gun is more often than not going to hit the target, which is very annoying and very frustrating in this tank. Alright, so I wanted to look back because the T-52 is actually proceeding towards our base. However, the medium tanks will have to cope with this because we are not fast enough to follow him. Now I'm loading to the premium ammunition and to our 205 penetration value. And now the reason is, yes, the penetration values of this gun are pretty much very good. They are very, very good for a tier 6 tank. However, due to the fact that this tank does have a very, very poor DPM, like, I feel that you have to use the premium ammunition more often compared to other tanks, because you want to make sure that every single shot that you fire penetrates and causes damage to the enemy tank. Because if you hit only a couple of shots, if you do not hit or do not penetrate only a couple of shots, then your bad DPM even becomes worse. And so, yes, the penetration values are nice on this gun. However, due to the fact that your DPM is so lackluster, more often than not, you want to load premium ammunition in order to at least stabilize your bad DPM on the value that you just saw. So that is kind of the downside of the bad DPM that this tank offers. Now, as you can see, 240 is pretty nice. On tier 6 we already made 1700 damage, and now it is time to make pressure because the game is already won. Now let's take a look at the mobility. This tank has a top speed of 45 kph, and now let's see if can we get a snapshot. No, not with this gun. Look at this sneaky little... Okay, my friend, I will get you and I will destroy you. That's a promise. So 45 kph top speed is quite good for a heavy tank. However, I think that 45 is just not enough to make the difference, you know, to, let's say, other fast heavy tanks. So this is why I want to play this tank with turbocharger in order to further increase this, let's say, little strength of this tank. This tank has a power of weight ratio of 17.57, which is quite good. And the problem is that it only has a gun depression of 5 degrees, which is very, very frustrating, and not enough to have the flexibility that you have or that you are used to compared to other tanks. So yeah, this is another downside. So mobility is actually good, especially if you're using a turbocharger, but then yeah, the gun depression is not enough. Now, I'm very cautiously here because the problem with this tank using the high alpha gun is your DPM is not enough to outplay opponents. So if an enemy would push you and would circle you, look at this. This is a situation. I have to continuously drive forward in order to have the gun depression in order to shoot at this tank. But now I'm just trying to face hack him. However, nevertheless, the enemy tank is has no problem of penetrating me, and we'll take a look at the armor profile in a second. So yeah, all in all, the tank does have its strength. It does certainly have its weaknesses, so it is actually quite nicely balanced. Let's take a look at the rest of the stats. This tank does have a good turret armor. The hull armor is not too strong, however, it is, let's say, here and there nicely armored. And now, yeah, and so the armor actually can work out, at least from what I discovered. 950 HP means that, yeah, this is actually on the higher side, not comparable to the VK3601. However, it is good. And then we don't have to talk about the camo values, because it is, after all, a heavy tank. It is quite huge compared to other tanks. And 360 meters of view range is also not the best value for a tier 6 tank. So all in all, yeah. Look at this, 240 alpha is just nice on this tier. And then due to the fact that this tank is pretty heavy, it actually does have some ramming capabilities. So all in all, we made 2300 damage in this game with the high alpha gun. This does not happen too often because first of all, your DPM is pretty lackluster, and then second of all, the gun handling is pretty lackluster. So, you know, from time to time you will miss shots, and this even decreases your poor damage per minute. So yeah, let's take a look at the armor profile, and then we'll look at some gameplays in which we use the other gun. after we have talked about all the stats of the tank, let's quickly talk about the armor profile. And the armor profile is pretty interesting. Now, as you can see, this tank does have quite some, let's say, weak spots. So the hull, the lower portion of the hull is very weak with only 118 to 100, let's say 30 millimeters of effective armor. Same as this portion here in the middle, only between 100 and 8, this weak spot here, and then 100 and let's say 47 millimeters, and then to the side it becomes stronger and stronger. Same as the turret. The turret is actually pretty strong. Now the gun mantlet does have, let's say, some weaker portions, but all in all, like the upper portion is pretty solid, except for this portion here. Plus you have a cupola. 160 millimeters, so everybody can penetrate you if the weak spots are hit. Now, this tank, as we said, only has 5 degrees of gun depression, so you cannot actually increase your armor too much, but it at least you can increase it a little bit, and then this weak spot here becomes, let's say, 156-ish millimeters of effective armor. This weak spot actually maintains, and so. Yeah, with this tank you will not bounce every shot because your opponents will be able to hit your weak spots. However, I found that you can play relatively aggressively in this tank. Now, let's see how the side scraping capabilities of this tank are. As you can see, this tank does have a problem because this rounded shape here, same as on the upper hull, means that this is becoming a weak spot as soon as you angle your tank. So side scraping is actually not an option with this tank. So yeah, the armor profile is pretty difficult actually to use because no matter how you play this tank, there are weak spots that your enemy tanks can hit. But we'll take a look at how we can make this tank work in the next gameplay. Before we start with the next game, let me quickly show you the difference between both guns that you have available. So let's start with the 90mm gun, and then let's compare to the second gun, the 76mm T91E5. So as you can see, the alpha damage is quite different. On the 90mm gun you have 240 alpha, which is nice for a tier 6 heavy tank. On the 76mm gun you only have 115, which is really lackluster. Same as the penetration on the 76mm gun, only 137. Premium penetration is 185, which is enough on tier 6, however it's also lackluster, at least a little bit, for tier 8. Now, different story on the 90mm gun, 160 is quite nice on tier 6, 205 on the premium ammunition is superb for a tier 6 tank and is even enough to cope with tier 8 tanks. But this is where the good news for the 90mm gun ends and where the good news for the 76mm gun starts, because the dispersion is better, 0.39er compared to 0.42, only 0.42. Aim time is better, 2.1 is not good, but let's say okay. 2.4 is, you know, where it starts to become ugly, at least compared, or at least in addition with this dispersion. Now look at the average damage per minute. 2029 is quite nice for this gun. 1600 is very lackluster on the 90mm gun. So first I played lots of games with the 90mm gun. Sorry, but I found out that this gun, in my opinion, does not really work well, at least in most of the games for this tank. So I switched to the 76mm gun, and this is actually the gun that I would recommend. In my opinion, this gun is the better gun and it makes more sense to use it on the Pawlack tank. Yes, you will have to use premium ammunition quite sometimes because 137mm of penetration is lackluster, but in the end this gun is so much better compared to the 90mm gun, and you can really make use of the 2029 base DPM that this gun offers. And now let me show you what I mean in the next game. Alright, second game with the Pawlack tank. This time we're playing with the 76mm gun. We're spawning on Province, and as usual, let's take a look at the map first. Spawning on Province in the north, the situation usually looks like this, and in my opinion, you should almost all the time go to the opposite portion of the map. So in my opinion, the team that is spawning right here does have an advantage if it is playing in this position. The team on the red side, which is spawning here, does have an advantage right here. So you should always cross and go down to the other side, because I think that defending is much easier than advancing on this map. Now, so with the Pawlack, actually your mobility is not too bad, so you can cross over here and be here in time to set up a defensive position. Now the problem is that due to the lack of gun depression, this position right here is a little bit difficult to play. However, there are several other options where you can set up a defensive position. Okay, so we will certainly instantaneously push over to the other side, because as I said, sorry, as I said, we will have a better defensive position on the other side. So I always recommend to go over to the other side. Now, as you can see with the turbocharger, we can actually go up to 58, 57 kph, at least downhill. And in this game, I want to show you the strength of the low alpha gun. And herefore, let me show you a comparison. So on the left hand side, you can see the Pawlack Tank with the low alpha gun, the 76mm, compared to the 240 alpha gun in the middle, and then compared to the M6 with the top tier gun with 240 alpha damage on the left hand side. And now this is what the strength of the 76mm gun is. It's DPM. As you can see, more than 2100 base DPM. And we talked about the armor profile. The armor profile is not good enough in order to stand in a position in which you, let's say, carefully want to aim your shots, and in which you are giving your opponent the same time to carefully aim. Because if your opponents have the time to carefully aim their shots, they will definitely hit your weak spots, because you have enough weak spots on your tank. And so this is not an option. So if you're doing this, if you're trading one by one with giving your opponent enough time to aim their shots, then they will be able to fully aim in their shots, and they will be able to out DPM you, just because your DPM is so lackluster. So what else? What other options do we have in the Pawlack Tank? The other option is to use, let's say, to use your armor, which is, you know, not the worst armor, to pressure your enemies. So to move forward, pressure your enemies, and to out DPM them. But this can only be done, this only works with the low alpha gun. And so, yeah, and besides this, the gun handling is actually much better on the low alpha gun. So in this situation, I'm basically shooting across the map. You know, the tanks are just inside my max Brenner range, and with a high alpha gun, I would not hit most of the shots. I'm very sure about that. So, but with the 76mm gun, I can actually, at least here and there, hit my shots. Now, the gun handling is obviously also not the best one, dispersion 0.37, but at least compared to 0.42, it is much better to use this gun. And we'll take a look at the exact values at the end of this game. However, in my opinion, the 76mm gun is a good option on this tank. So yeah, back to the game. 3 versus 3. Unfortunately, our team went to the 8 and 9 lane. So we are on our own here with a T67. It looks like the M10 is following us. And now I think enough of sniping. Now I want to out DPM the M10. So once again, look at how fast we can shoot, and look at how nicely we can out DPM this M10. Now we are trying to only show our turret, so this is why he is actually not making any damage. And now obviously, as we have been spotted from the M10, now the enemy tanks will be able to, or are able to, shoot across the map. So okay, let me see. Maybe the VK3601H is going to spot them in a bit. But now, let's push forward. Maybe we can hit the T67 against the Su-100Y. Let me see. Oh, here you go. The VK3601H of the enemy team is spotted, and now once again, I want to help my team. Okay, I should have fully aimed in this shot. Ah, too bad. Yeah. Once again, not the most precise gun, but at least much more precise compared to the 240 Alpha gun. And so yeah, you know, after 5 minutes of the game, we already made 2000 damage, taking out 4 tanks. Let's see, can we get a shot on the Cavalier? No, we can't. Maybe the VK3601H is pushing forward. Yes, no. No, unfortunately not. So yeah, the Pawlack Tank. Here you go. Maybe we can punish the Su-100Y. He has just shot, so his reload should not be over yet. And now, oh, okay, too bad this bounced. There you go. Yeah, so once again, thanks to the nice DPM, we can take out this tank. And now, here you go. So if we're only showing this bit of our tank, then your armor profile should really work. Because we are actually hiding the surface that I showed you when we were talking about side scraping in this tank. So side scraping is not an option, but if you have some obstacles behind which you can hide, then it really, here you go, it can really work out. Okay, let's see. So 2500 damage so far, which is very nice, and 5 kills. And now we do need some help. Hopefully the Hellcat and the M10 are proceeding towards our position. So far I don't want to push on my own, because there might be some more tanks. So the Cavalier and the VK are on the other side. However, that means that the M4, the Russian M4, the Lotus or whatever it is called, and both T-67s are on my side. And so, great, can we hit the Cavalier? Here you go. Nice, and maybe now, hopefully, the Su-100Y is able to take him out. So far, I think our job in this game is just to finish off enemies. Nice. So that we have an advantage at the end of the game. So let's see, now I think we can advance. The Hellcat has... oh, that was actually a surprise. Yeah, he is shooting APCR, so with this, he is... able to penetrate us, which is bad. Now, hopefully the VK is not going to shoot on us. Okay, the M4 is on the other side, however we cannot get a crossfire on him, which is bad. Okay, looks like the T-67 player really knows what he's doing. Let's see, can we get a shot on him? That was too bad. Let's see. Okay, there's the other. Oh, okay. Now we do have a problem, because we are in a crossfire situation. That is not where we want to be. And now let's just fall back. Okay. So I'm turning my turret towards the M4 so that he's unable to hit me. And let's see. He's also shooting APCR, by the way. Meanwhile, the VK3001P is pressuring us. So let's see. As soon as he pushes forward, I will try to hit the Hellcat and try to get shots on him. Here you go. Look at this sneaky little T-67 player. He's doing a very, very great job. Okay, nice. We can bounce this shot at least with moving backward. We can get another shot on him. Okay, now the VK is pushing. And now, as you can see, the gun depression is even not enough in this position. So yeah, this is now bad. And being frontally exposed to another tank means that he can certainly hit us, yep, and hit our weak spots. We have enough hit spots. So the armor profile is good in a certain, let's say, position. However, if you are completely frontally exposed to other tanks, then your armor is just not sufficient. So... anyways, we are going to lose this game. However, in the end, we made 3,300 damage, 680 spotting or assistant damage, so 4.1k combined. I think a very great result, and in my opinion, that is more or less due to the fact that we used the 76mm gun, which has a fantastic DPM, and which is also much more precise, because I think in this situation in this game, sniping from one side of the map to the other, we would not have been able to achieve this with playing with the other gun. Okay, third and last game in the Pawlack. This time we are spawning on Paris, and once again let's take a look at the map. Spawning on Paris in the east, the situation usually looks like this, and with the heavy tank you should definitely support the heavy flank, so right here. The only question is, do you need to stay defensively because you're a low tier tank, or can you play aggressively because you are a top tier tank? If you are a top tier tank and if you're fast enough, you can go to this position right here, so underneath this bridge here, to pressure this position, because this position here is super strong defensively, and if you can manage to go here, you can pressure this position so that the enemy does not have the option to exploit this strong defensive position. Okay, so this is the exact situation in which we can make pressure. We are in a tier 6 game, we are playing in a heavy tank. Our mobility is, at least using the turbocharger, better compared to other heavy tanks. As you can see, we are even holding up with the VK3002M, which is nice. And so my decision is to make pressure and to go down to the K4 position. I certainly would not come to a standstill right here where the VK is stopping, because you will be exposed to crossfire from the E4 position. So instead I want to push down here, because in my opinion this is exactly the gameplay which is most suited for the Pawlack tank. Rush into a position, use your mobility, which is better at least compared to other heavy tanks, and then play aggressively, use your armor in order to out DPM other tanks, but therefore you have to use the small alpha gun, which has the good DPM, and not the high alpha gun with the high DPM, because with this gun you will not be able to out DPM your opponents. Okay, so let's see if the VK pushes forward, then and look how we made a huge low roll, only 93, but that's okay. Now as you can see, he has a huge cupola. Okay, here you go. Now if this happens, if another tank is moving forward, then you can just outplay him, out DPM him. Now as you can see, the light tank even does not look towards us, which is nice, because now we just want to aim at his engine compartment in order to light him up. And here you go. Now we can take him out. Okay, excellent. So yeah, playing aggressively is about to work out. We already made 1000 damage with our high DPM gun. Here you go. And now as you can see, we can even penetrate his roof, because he is... Okay, now as you can see, the other Pawlack tank obviously is using the high alpha gun, but this gives us another good example, because obviously what you cannot do with the low alpha gun is to outtrade your opponent if you are trading 1-for-1. So obviously I'm making 150 damage with this gun. The other Pawlack tank is dealing 240 damage with this gun, and so if we are trading 1-by-1, then obviously he's going to outtrade me. So instead, I need to be smart and play carefully. As you can see, the VK was in a position to shoot. Now, as soon as the Pawlack is moving forward, I will punish him and try to not receive a shot. Looks like our team is kind of winning in the north. MX12T has pushed forward to the D3 position, which is good for us, because eventually they can support me while making pressure, you know, from behind, so to speak. And so let me see, he's pushing forward. Nice. So let's deal damage. So in this situation, I cannot just go forward and fight against 3 heavy tanks. Instead, I need to play cautiously and yeah, a little bit more defensively. Now here you go. Here you go. Now I can out DPM him, because he is making a stupid move. Once again, already 2000 damage. Nice. As soon as he's shot, we will push out. And and just aim at this point of the map. Now, as you can see, we have map control. Looks like our light tanks and medium tanks are winning the northern part of the map, which is nice. The only problem is we only have 368 HP remaining, so we need to play cautiously, because we at the end do want to make more damage. Now the ARL, once again, there you go, nice. So he's taken out. Okay, now we can push forward and make more damage. Now I think we have to shoot on the turret of the ARL, because this is weakly armored. Nice, he's turning his turret. Yeah, no chance to penetrate the hull, but no, can also not track him, but maybe, as you can see, here you go. This is where we are supposed to hit. Looks like he's playing in a stock tank, at least with a stock gun. Nice, okay, so perfect. 2400 damage in 5 minutes of the game, which is, in my opinion, a good result in a tier 6 tank. And yeah, I think this game showed like the optimum playstyle of this tank, but it also showed the, let's say, the deficiencies that this, in my opinion, preferred gun does have, because obviously trading 1 by 1 is not good, will not lead to success in this tank. And so yeah, I think overall, what can we say about the Pawlack tank? In my opinion, this tank is a nicely balanced tank, in a sense that it is certainly not a strong tank, at least not one of the strongest. It is situationally an okay to, let's say, slightly above average tank, but in general it is, I would say, only an average tank. It has a very interesting armor profile. It is very interesting to play, and at first, when I was playing the 240 Alpha gun, I did not have too much fun with this tank, because the gun was most of the time not hitting where I was aiming. Very bad gun handling, frustrating DPM, but as soon as I switched to the low alpha gun, this tank actually made fun. You know, it changed to being a fun heavy tank, and I like the playstyle of playing aggressively and using your, let's say, workable armor in order to out DPM opponents with your, once again, low alpha gun. So yeah, all in all, I must say that I actually do like this tank, and I think it is very nicely balanced. It is certainly not overpowered. It is far from being overpowered. It is far from being a strong tier 6 tank. It is situationally strong, but in the end it was, yeah, I would say fun to play. Alright guys, that was it for today with the new Pawlack tank. What do you think about this tank? Do you like it? Do you think it's competitive? Just leave a comment in the comment section down below. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. Consider subscribing to my channel, and I see you next time in another World of Tanks video.